3-minute thesis here at the Research Dialogues, at our inaugural Research Dialogues. I am Joanne Romagna. I am the Dean of the Graduate School, and I will be going over the rules. And one of the things I do want the judges to know, first of all, everybody give the judges a hand. They are volunteers to do this. Thank you, folks. I mean, we couldn't do this without you. Here's the way it's going to work today. I will read the rules so everybody's aware of how this has to work. The judges are going to tabulate on their sheets. There is a difference in the instructions in what you were given. I am asking you just keep all of the sheets together and hand them in as a group, okay? And give them, we will get them to the tabulators. The final scores, the winners, will be announced at the reception tonight. So you actually have to stick around to eat, okay? Sorry about that. First prize is a $200 gift card, second prize is $100, and third prize is $50. So we are giving prizes to our students, the winners of this competition. That said, let me get started and kind of go over the rules and regulations. We have a clock over here that will indicate when your time is coming, is ticking down. Bailey is in charge of the clock. She will give you an indication when you will begin. Okay, when you come up, you get your slide set, and she will start you. Just to kind of put this into context, the first 3-minute thesis was held at the University of Queensland in 2008. And they had 160 students competing. By 2009 and 2010, it had gone all over Australia and New Zealand. And it is actually trademarked, which is why the 3-minute thesis logo is on the page in our Research Dialogues program, as well as on the sign outside. It's held now at over 170 universities in more than 18 countries worldwide. And we're very excited to have it here as well. So the rules are, you are allowed a single PowerPoint slide. Everybody is aware of that. There is no slide transition, animations, movement, nothing like that. It's just to be presented at the beginning of the oration. No additional electronic media, no sound or video. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes maximum, and competitors exceeding 3 minutes are disqualified, guys. Presentations are to be spoken word. Presentations are to commence from the stage. You must be up here. Presentations are considered to have commenced when a presenter starts their presentation through either movement or speech. So don't move. It's like, yeah. The decision of the adjudicating panel is final. No whining. Okay? So those are the rules. So before we begin, I am also very excited to have our relatively brand new Vice Chancellor of Marketing, who has been at Georgia Tech before here. He spent several years at the Georgia Tech Research Institute, and research is very near and dear to his heart. So he's going to give us some opening remarks, and without further ado, Kurt Engelhardt.
Hear me? Loud and clear? Loud and clear. Okay, great. Well, I'm excited to be here. This is a great competition, and right before I left Georgia Tech, I had the privilege of being able to judge the 3-minute thesis competition. So there's a lot of great stuff to come, and I'm really glad that you're here to take part in this event. I want to take a minute and just share a number with you. The number is 1.8 million. 1.8 million. So you think, well, what's special about that number? Well, it's a big number, right? It's got a decimal point in between. You could round it up to an even bigger number, but that's really not why I'm sharing it with you. I'm sharing it with you because that's how many articles are published in research journals.
You have to be really loud.
I have to be loud. I can be loud. 1.8 million, that's the number of papers that are published in academic journals every year. So if you're publishing a paper, that's what you're competing with. Every student, every professor, every researcher who publishes a paper thinks that paper is special, thinks the research is special, and it is. A lot of work goes into that, years, months of work. But I hate to burst your bubble. The average paper only gets a couple of downloads, maybe a citation or two, a couple of reads, and those are usually by you. by the editor of the journal, by the reviewers, and if you're lucky, maybe a couple of friends and mom and dad or something like that will take a look at it, even though they probably won't understand what it is that's in the paper. So essentially, by publishing an article, yes, you're documenting that for the scientific community. However, you're competing against 1.8 million other papers out there. So what makes us think that somebody's going to take a look at our paper over somebody else? There are those rare occasions when you have a paper that strikes gold. It just catches on, and it's one of those things that everybody's reporting, everybody's talking about. But it's like getting struck by lightning or winning the lottery. It's rare, and it doesn't happen to everybody. And there are researchers, there are students that could go their entire career and not have a paper that gets that kind of attention. So what do you have to do? You have to be good at communicating. You have to shine a light on your work. You have to make sure that people know that your work is there and know that you exist and that you are here, that you are doing great work in this area. Can you tell I'm passionate about this? It means that you have to be public. You have to get out there. You have to be able and be willing to engage. And this is not the comfort zone of most people who are on a college campus and involved in academic research. I know this. It's really jumping out of the comfort zone. There's research out there that shows that even shining a little bit of a light on the work and on the papers that you published can lead to more citations, more downloads, opportunities to present at conferences once people realize that you exist and that you do have great ideas. Could also drive grants. Is anybody interested in those? A couple of people interested in getting grants? Yes, we're all interested in getting grants.
Yes.
So no matter what you do, I mean, you may not be interested in publishing. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you're going to go on and have a job in industry or do something totally different outside of academia. Well, you're still going to have competition. And those people you're competing with are going to have great ideas. And some of them are going to have ideas that are better than your ideas. But the thing that's going to make the difference between you and those people is how you communicate your ideas and the impact of your ideas. And that'll make all the difference in the world. So that's why I'm so excited that we're having this competition here, because it is about communicating research in a way that even I can understand in plain English in 3 minutes, which is pretty much as much time as you're going to get when you talk to an employer, when you talk to somebody who's potentially going to give you a grant, and when you are standing in that elevator. You don't have that much time to get the message across. So I know you're anxious to hear these presentations. I am too. So thank you for being here. Thank you for having me here. Let's get the show on the road.
Thank you. So I am going to introduce each of the speakers, and they will come up, and Bailey will indicate the start time. So are we ready to go? Everybody ready? Judges ready? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. We are going to begin this today with Robert Arrowood, whose title is Scared to Death, an examination of underlying terror in death awareness.
Good morning. So we're going to begin by talking about possibly one of the most negative topics that we can talk about, and I'm referring to death. So when studying death, there's been a lot of literature within the past 30 years, specifically within terror management theory. Terror management theory says that we are innately driven, evolutionarily, to deny our own death. The reason we have to deny is because it literally terrifies us. It is supposed to completely immobilize us with terror. However, fortunately for us, we have these defense mechanisms in place that shield against this terror. We don't have to worry about it because we have these defenses. However, with a name like terror management theory, you would think there would be some evidence for terror. And sadly, the past 30 years of literature says no, there's not been any evidence of actual terror. However, most of this has relied on self-report measures, which is part of the crux of psychology. So self-report-wise, we're not reporting any terror following death awareness. So that's a problem, especially considering it's named terror management theory, that there's no evidence for terror. So I looked at this, I'm thinking, okay, we're relying on these self-report measures, but what about physiological and biological markers of terror? Surely these things would be at play, even though we're not able to self-report this terror. So looking at these physiological measures, such as heart rate, galvanic skin response, which is just electrodermal activity, which is the conductance and the sweat that you have on your fingers, looking at these measures, as well as these self-report measures, we can actually see, and part of what my thesis found, there is some evidence for terror. Looking at it through a structural equation model of latent variables, where we looked at these physiological measures and these self-report measures of negative affectivity, stress, distress, sadness, fear, all of these measures combined, we actually did find a significant effect showing that making people think of their death did in fact find evidence of terror. Now this terror was not entirely consciously recognizable. We found this terror physiologically and consciously combined. So even though people are not aware that they are terrified, their body is suggesting otherwise. They are responding physically that they are terrified. This has huge implications, especially considering a lot of the recent events. The shooting here in Chattanooga, the Ebola outbreak, the Zika virus outbreak, all of the different events, the terrorist attack, all of these are reminders of death. So as far as response teams, crisis responding agencies, when they come in, although people may not be reporting that they are terrified, in fact, their body is deceiving them. They are, in fact, terrified. And this has huge implications for how we respond to these people, because they may say that they are fine, but their body is not lying. They are not. They are physiologically aroused, and they are physiologically distressed. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Paul Eric Backlund. He will be talking to us about prevalence and severity of Bacterochytrium dendrobatitis in natural wetlands and urban retention ponds in southeastern Tennessee.
We are currently in the midst of Earth's sixth mass extinction. Climate change, pollution, disease have all been implicated as factors contributing to the decline of global biodiversity. One taxa that is currently experiencing rapid declines throughout the world is that of amphibians. Implicated as the cause of many extinction and extirpation events around the world is the amphibian disease Chytridiomycosis and the fungus that causes that disease, Batrachochytrium dendrobatitis, or simply BD. In recent years, 34 species have gone extinct from BD, and another 88 have possibly gone extinct. 1/5 of the world's amphibians are now threatened with extinction. No wildlife disease has ever caused extinctions on the same global scale as we are currently seeing with BD. Case studies investigating this pathogen are now a foremost priority for biologists. Studies show that BD does not impact all species equally. Likewise, it has been demonstrated that BD infection risk varies between different habitat types. For BD to persist and thrive in an environment, it requires cool and moist conditions. Because canopy cover is directly related to how much sunlight penetrates to the ground and subsequently how dry and warm that area is, studies have shown that tropical amphibian populations in pristine habitats are at a lower risk of BD infection than or in disturbed habitats, than in pristine habitats with ample canopy cover. These findings indicate that disturbed habitats may function as sanctuary from BD. At this time, very little research has been conducted on BD in southeast Tennessee, even less on the role of that habitat plays in disease risk in this type of temperate ridge and valley ecoregion. To fill this data gap, my proposed research will compare BD infection prevalence and severity in pristine habitats and disturbed habitats by sampling natural wetlands and urban retention ponds in southeast Tennessee. My study organisms are two species that are closely related and commonly utilize wetland retention ponds. The goal of this research is to evaluate the link between habitat conditions and BD infection risk regionally, determine the link between habitat conditions and infection risk, determine retention pond habitats experience reduced infection rates, and determine if the two target species vary in regard to infection prevalence and severity. This research is not only relevant to biologists, but also bolsters a body of knowledge that is directly related to the future of life on Earth as we know it. Amphibians occupy complex ecological roles as both predator and prey, and function as bioindicators that can be used to assess the health of an ecosystem. Amphibians control disease-carrying insect populations and are commonly used in medical research. At our current pace of extinction, projections show a total global extinction of amphibians within 20 to 50 years. Amphibians matter, biodiversity matters, and the stakes have never been higher.
Okay, our next presenter is David Koyao, who is presenting on the computational study of the effects of protruding studs casing treatment on the performance of an axial transonic turbofan.
Good morning, everyone. So imagine that later today you're going to meet your friends for lunch, and they tell you that a group of them are going to go to the beach this weekend, and they want you to come because you're fun. So, you think this is a good idea because the semester has been kind of rough. And it's kind of gloomy outside, so spending a couple of days at the beach is actually a really nice idea. So you go to the internet, you go to your favorite travel site, and you look for airplane tickets, and you realize that airfare is super expensive and way above your budget. So you can't go. But don't worry, engineers are here to help. So in my PhD research, I work using computational tools to test new methods for making compression systems more stable. The compression systems I work with are the kind that go inside jet engines that are used for commercial aircraft. This work is very important because making the compression systems more stable help keep their integrity, but also improve their stability and at the same time their efficiency. Now you may be wondering, why do I care for this compression system stability thing? Sounds like too much of a complicated problem, and it is. But let me tell you, when we improve the stability of compression systems, we improve their efficiency, and we can help reduce the operation costs. And in commercial aviation, this translates into flying to the beach for cheaper. The method that I'm using to improve the stability of compression systems, I have called them protruding studs, and you can see them over there on picture E. By using this simple method, which is called a passive method for stability control, we are improving the stability of compression systems. We have run several simulations, and we have demonstrated that it's possible to improve the stability of them, and we have shown that it's possible to increase the mass flow rate for about 2%. This is very important because at the end, in spite of it being a lot of work, I think it's really worth it. We want people to go to the beach. So, thank you.
So our next talk is by Thaddeus Johnson, Mitigating Delinquency Through Academic Intervention, an Empirical Test of Social Control Theory. Thaddeus?
When adolescents are arrested, they're more likely to be arrested on the days they're either absent from school or days they've actually been suspended. If you're arrested during adolescence, your chances or odds of being involved in adult criminality exponentially increases. And this is particularly true for minority youth who are considered to be at risk of academic failure or at risk of behavioral issues, and also from disadvantaged and impoverished communities. This particular study sought to see if social bonds to school and whether participation in the GURP program or academic intervention activities mitigates delinquent behavior that led to suspensions. And this is particularly troubling because our univariate analysis indicated that 61% of these students were suspended, of these 236 ninth graders records that we examined. This is a troubling indication because also nationwide we've noticed that minority students from these particular type of demographics are adversely impacted by suspension policies within our public school systems. And let me just give a real life scenario. A student suspended right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee was murdered on the day he was suspended. Another student who was expelled, they actually committed a murder and robbery at a store right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. An actual school here that fits the demographics of this particular group has more suspensions than it actually has students enrolled. What I described to you is a school-to-prison pipeline. And the results of our binary analysis indicated that the bonds of commitment is measured by GPA and involvement is measured by attendance. With GPA, for every unit increase in GPA, the odds of suspension decreased by 70%. For every day missed by students, their odds of being suspended increased by 6%. And this is cumulative. So what this means is, for example, if a student misses 10 days from school, their odds of being suspended from school increases by 60%. Now, we also discovered what makes this particular study so neoteric and novel. Instead of looking at the GURP program and the overall influence of academic intervention, what we looked at was We also looked at each intervention module, and we found that an involvement in summer enrichment programming reduced the chances of involvement in delinquency by almost 77%. The implications are real. And if we build upon these findings, we can strengthen programs designed to service a particular group of students, buffer the school-to-prison pipeline, and also provide a panacea for overall juvenile delinquency in general. Thank you for your time.
I'm sure most of you here, if not all, have flown in an airplane. It is so amazing that you can go from LA to New York in about 5 hours, and for example, from the country that I was born, South Korea, to LA in about half a day. However, is it all just good? Don't you have any complaints about the airplane itself? Well, I do. Definitely, the noise is one of them. You all experienced it. It is too loud. Especially those who live near the airport suffer directly from it day and night. We all know this problem, and most people say, I know, I don't like it, but what can I do? But we engineers think differently. We say, why is it so noisy? Can I reduce the noise? If I can understand the cause, then I can solve it. I can change the world. And that's how my research started. Airframe noise is recognized as one of the major sources of aircraft noise, especially in the landing and approach phase. And the landing gear of the airplane is known to be one of the main airframe noise contributors. Moreover, the landing gear noise is a result of air passing around it and its interactions with other components of the aircraft. So, if I understand the physics of the airflow around this landing gear, it'll help me with the overall goal to reduce airplane noise. But the airplane is too big for me to measure all the properties of the airflow, and it is far too costly. Here comes the power of computational engineering. The SimCenter, National Center for Computational Engineering at UTC, solves real-world problems in various areas by using physics-based modeling and simulating the problem using high-performance computing. So, using the resources at the SimCenter, instead of modeling the whole landing gear, we simplified the problem by considering tandem cylinders, 2 cylinders in a tandem arrangement as a test case. And we solved the equations governing the airflow around them numerically. Now, how do we know that our results are valid? Thankfully, for this tandem cylinder configuration, there exists a lot of experimental data taken by NASA. So we compared our results with them, and they agreed very well with each other. This gives us confidence that we can realistically simulate the airflow around this simplified configuration. The next step would be to model the real landing gear and simulate the airflow around it. Analyzing the results, identifying the noise sources, and proposing a mitigation strategy would bring us one step closer to reducing the overall noise from an airplane. Thank you.
Okay, so our next presenter is Matt Joplin, who is speaking about method for evaluating impact of microcomputer application state on hardware lifespan in space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. These were the words spoken by Neil Armstrong as he became the first person to make contact with another heavenly body. This filled the nation with pride, and the goal of reaching the moon was the driving force behind many advances in science and technology. I want to feel that pride and drive in my own time. Actually, technology has become very accessible to make this happen. You can put an orbital experiment on a 5-inch cube and send it into outer space, and small groups of people can do this. Like only groups of about 5 or 6 can actually put this whole thing together. However, there's a problem with this. There's radiation in outer space, and the environment is incredibly harsh. So you can get around this using circuit design and actually harden the devices so that they last longer against the radiation. But what I propose is one step above that. It's application design. Whenever you have a device, you choose it so that it does a particular application. But you can add other things to it in order to change the circuitry and actually I think, and my research is studying whether or not adding these peripherals to the application and the device actually extends the lifetime. And actually, I think that there is a point at which there's an optimal combination of these applications so that it lasts the longest in space. So you get more out of your device, and more devices are actually becoming space viable. So we're bringing space just a little bit closer to the people who actually want to go out there and study it. And we're doing this using radiation testing and normal devices that you can get off the shelf. So by bringing down the cost, we're going to be able to send more ideas into space so that they can be put to the test. Thank you.
Okay, our next presenter is Amy Katcher-Dunn, and the title of her presentation is Does LEED Certification Matter to Product Purchasing Decisions? A case study of Chattanooga Volkswagen Passat owners.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for UTC 3MT. I'm Amy Katcher-Dunn. The University of Tennessee at Chattanooga once again earns Best Graduate School Program for an unprecedented 39th time. We're going to sit down with Vice Chancellor Keith Engelhardt a little bit later in the program to find out why. Also, the UTC Lady Mocs finished another unstoppable season. But first, our top local story. Volkswagen Chattanooga, the world's first LEED Platinum certified manufacturing facility of automobiles. Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design certification means VW meets nationally and internationally known benefits and benchmarks of green construction. Studies show that LEED certified buildings enjoy greater pre-sale interest, higher appraisal values, and higher sale prices as well. And Volkswagen could use this LEED certification to help repair the environmental damage done by the emissions cheating scandal. Now, although considerable research has been done about the marketability of LEED buildings, UTC 3MT found no direct attention was given to assessing if the LEED benefits filter down to the profitability of the products manufactured within those LEED facilities. Well, luckily, an environmental science master's candidate is conducting a large-scale survey of regional Volkswagen Passat owners to determine that. Of course, the Volkswagen Passat is what's built in that LEED certified platinum facility. The survey's author tells us the survey had questions to gauge the respondents' knowledge about things such as car features and LEED, opinions about general greenness and LEED certification, and demographics. Prior studies have shown demographics can be especially influential when it comes to embracing environmentalism. But that did not appear to be the case for Chattanooga area Volkswagen Passat owners. There was no statistical significance between men and women when it comes to consideration of LEED certification. So that could mean that maybe Chattanooga area Passat owners are just a greener group than your typical car owner. Now, 2/3, or more than 2/3 actually, of the survey respondents reported some knowledge or full understanding of LEED certification, but that didn't mean that they considered LEED certification when they purchased their Passat. In fact, the largest number of respondents said that they did not consider Volkswagen's LEED certification at all. So that means Volkswagen officials have two different options. They can either enjoy the benefits of LEED certification, including monetary gains, because on average, LEED certified buildings cost about 70 cents less per square foot to operate than traditional buildings, or they can really play up the marketability of their LEED Platinum certification. By doing so, by showing the time and extra money spent to make Volkswagen Chattanooga the world's first LEED Platinum certified auto manufacturing facility, new interim VW President Henrik Buken has the opportunity to show the world just how environmentally conscious Volkswagen once again is. Turning now to political news, Democratic presidential frontrunner Hillary Clinton taps Jim Foster as her running mate.
All right, our next speaker is going to be Shika Patel, who will talk to us about the optimization of transient heat transfer for layered ceramic insulation and stainless foil fire barriers.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I would like to start by saying every second counts. In case of a fire, especially in a public place such as a hospital or a school, where hundreds of people are trying to escape, time is of the essence. According to the US Fire Department, every year around 3,000 people die due to structural and residential fires. In Tennessee itself, 5.5% higher deaths have been reported than the national average. But this can be changed with better design. The role of fire safety plays a vital role in the design of the building. The aim is still to protect lives and property. It is due to this reason I chose to optimize heat transfer analysis on new fire barrier design. Now, the fire barrier must meet 3 national standard conditions. First, a fire barrier must not allow passage of flames or hot gases. Second, a heat transmission must be limited to keep the surface temperature on the other side of the barrier below 250 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just over boiling water. Third, a fire barrier must maintain its structural integrity. Now, one of the important factors that goes into the design, composition, and analysis of a fire barrier is the material being used. In this case, we'll be using ceramic fiber insulation because it can withstand the high temperatures caused due to fire. Then we'll use stainless steel foil layers in between the ceramic fiber insulation layers. Using foil layers will allow us to structurally support the barrier in case the outer layer starts to break down after a certain point. It will also block thermal radiation and transport of gases through porous insulation fibers. Now, once the design is complete, a heat transfer analysis is performed to determine temperatures within the barrier. All modes of heat transfer, such as conduction, convection, and radiation, will be analyzed. Simulation software is used to determine different temperatures within the barrier at several different times. This analysis will help us predict the structural stability of the barrier in case of an actual fire. The key contribution I'm making in my thesis is that doing a heat transfer analysis of this will help us predict the conditions better and give us a longer time, which serves the ultimate purpose of saving lives, because every second matters. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for our next to last talk, which is going to be given by Madeline Strong. Habitat-specific fitness consequences of sociality in Octagon, Vegas.
If I asked you to think about animal sociality, you might imagine a pride of lions or a troop of monkeys. You might even think of asocial species like bears and tigers that exist solitarily, coming together only to breed. In reality, animal sociality or group living exists on a spectrum rather than a distinction of simply social or asocial. In fact, some animals exhibit social flexibility, living in groups or solitarily depending on environmental conditions. The group living should only persist if the benefits of living among others exceeds those costs. And for some species, these costs and benefits are habitat specific. That's why it's important that we study the costs and benefits of group living throughout the range of a species to understand the adaptive significance of sociality. This is where my study animal, the dagu, comes in. The dagu is a rodent endemic to central Chile that burrows in groups with 1 to 5 males and 1 to 5 females. My objective was to determine the fitness consequences of variation in group size, composition, and social network structure, or how connected individuals are to each other within 2 distinct populations of dagus. One was in an area called Fray Jorge National Park and one in Rinconada. Now, traditionally, group sizes have been used as measurements in sociality, but we're learning now that things like group composition and social network structure are impacting the reproductive success of these animals. So 2014 was a very interesting field season. Regardless of group size, in Fray Jorge, no females produced viable offspring. There was essentially no rainfall in the winter and spring, resulting in no food on the ground. Now, dagus live for about 1 year in the wild, and females commit to a 3-month gestation. Basically, dagus have this one shot at reproduction, and these dagus miss that shot. It's important that we understand how environmental conditions are impacting these kinds of reproductive outcomes. With no pups from the previous season, it was very difficult to find dagus in 2015, and this impacted their group size and composition and social network structure. Living in an area that's affected by El Nino Southern Oscillation events, which can explain the random variation in climate and weather, we see that these kinds of environmental variation can greatly affect the reproductive success. And it's important that we study these animals in long-term research to understand these relationships.
Our final presenter today is Chao Wu, who's going to speak to us about an agent-based mathematical model about carp aggregation.
Well, I'm sorry you have to bear with my posters. I tried to explain my model in 3 minutes, and I hope you will enjoy it. Well, our model is targeted at Asian carps. They are noxious invasive species in the Mississippi Basin, and they were introduced to control the weed and the parasite growth in the aquaculture. However, they escaped into the river, and they have established breeding populations. Now they fight their way into the Great Lakes. Because their devastating effects on the ecosystem, we have to control them. And our modeling tried to predict the aggregation of our carp given the initial status. Thus, we can prepare to harvest them once we know where it might aggregate. And my model is pretty simple. Don't be frightened by the formulas at this side. The carp, we assume the carp aggregate at a perceptual zone. That means carp can see each other, then they can have interact with each other. If they get too close to each other, means in the repelling zone, they will repel to each other. In the comfortable zone, here is a parallel zone. They will just follow their own direction and keep their own velocity. Once they get too far away from each other, but they can see each other, they will tend to get closer. This becomes the attraction zone. Well, our model also introduced the temperature effect that affects the aggregation, because we observed during the winter time, the carp tend to aggregate under the ice. So here, as shown in this form, the nearest neighbor distance of the carp will be smaller if the temperature is small. Well, if the temperature is higher, the distance will be larger. And this snapshot is the simulation with the is a simulation when we consider the temperature. In the middle, the temperature is higher than the edge. As we can see, the carp tend to aggregate near the edge. This one without the temperature, and we can see the carp tend to aggregate near the center. And this is my simulation. This is my model. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this concludes the 3-minute thesis. I want to thank all of you who participated. Let's give a big hand, because that's not very easy. The judges will finish their tabulations, and what we're going to do is Meredith is standing back there in the yellow sweater, and as you finish, you can kind of hand the tabulations to Meredith, and she will put them all together and give them to the people who will be calculating them for us. As I said, the students will I will announce the winners tonight at the reception, so they have to go. And we will have the cash card, or the gift cards to give you then. So again, and thanks to all of our judges for your time and for actually taking the time here to visit us here and to hear what our students are doing. Thank you again.